Hello, everyone. Welcome to Car Conversations, Episode 8, with your host, Kurt here. We're going to be talking about going broke trying to look rich. So, first, we're going to talk about spending today. So, controlling your spending is fundamental to personal finance because for the vast majority of people, it's going to be much easier to control spending than it is to control your income stream. So, we have a couple options when controlling our income stream, and that's getting a raise somehow or switching jobs and getting a better job that pays more. But most of the time, our spending is actually more fundamental to our personal finance and wealth than the actual income part is. So if we can budget our income out that we do have, it's actually going to be much easier and better for you in the long run. Besides budgeting, it's going to be extremely important for us to be able to say no to ourselves and others when looking at spending. Because if we're always going out and every time we see something we buy it, or every time we are at a restaurant we spend more than we had budgeted, it doesn't mean anything to budget at that point. So just being able to stay disciplined and take ownership for our spending is going to be extremely important. And the only way we can do that is through a lot of practice. And that takes a lot of time, but over time, we will become more and more consistent in saying no to certain situations and being able to control what we are spending our money on. So I'm sure that many of you have heard the phrase keeping up with the Joneses. It's a term for spending more just to fit in or impress somebody else, and it usually ends in going into a lot of debt. And you see that a lot in society now because people have a lot of income coming in and it's a great economy. So banks are willing to leverage that income a little more than before. And they're willing to let you max out that leverage and not actually tell you, hey, might be at the edge of what your income levels are, but we're going to lend it to you anyways. They don't say that. They just give you the money and know that their interest will be making them money in the future. So it's really important for you to know what your limits are and not always go with what the bank gives you in terms of lending. Because if we're just trying to keep up with our neighbors and friends, it's going to end up putting us in a hole. We have to be very, very careful in what we're spending on and knowing why we're doing it. If it's just to impress people and make others jealous, it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to create wealth long term. The people we idolize most are usually the people who are standing out because they're being themselves and not the fakes who are just trying to spend their way to the top to fit in. Sometimes those people make it in, the people that stand out, but most of the time they get buried right away because they're just trying too hard and it's not going to work for them. So that comes back to us as well. We have to just be confident in what we have going on, not stressing about what others think about us in terms of income and spending, but just doing what we need to do to become wealthy long term. And it's going to be a long process. Sometimes it's hard to see those results right away, but if you stay focused and disciplined, take that ownership, we can all grow in terms of wealth slowly over time. And that's what it takes. Just constant discipline, being able to stay confident in what we have going on, and just trust the process. I truly believe in living in the present and not stressing about the future all the time and to enjoy the present. But there's also a future out there with us in it and others that we care about. It's important to think about that sometimes as well, especially when we're looking at wealth, because that's a slow process that takes time and won't build instantly in the present. There's no instant gratification usually in terms of wealth. It's always a long process. Even the people who look like they have overnight successes, it's long term. It doesn't happen overnight. And to think about people who are living by the phrase, you only live once, it's a little depressing because, yes, we only live once, but you don't want to ruin your future by spending it all away in the present and taking on too much debt and passing on that debt to others in your future that you care about. It's just going to keep setting you back farther and farther if you always are deciding that everything is a YOLO situation and you can spend whatever you want, because who knows what will happen in the future. You could die tomorrow, but chances are you're not. You're going to probably keep living, and you're probably going to have an excellent future ahead of you, especially if you prepare for that future. So today we talked a lot about spending and making sure we control that spending through budgeting, saying no to ourselves and others in certain situations, looking at the long term, thinking about that future, and really taking our time to focus on ourselves and not stress about what others think about us in terms of spending and keeping up with them. So this is Kurt signing off for episode 8 of Car Conversations.